Hello. Welcome to our Women Who Code panel, Inspiring Inclusion. This is our capstone event for our month-long celebration for Women's History Month and International Women's Day. Today, we're excited to connect with you, an impressive lineup of tech leadership and Women Who Code CEO Julie Elberfeld. So to kick things off, we will wait for folks to join and say hi in the chat. Oh,
Hi, everyone. Well, it wouldn't be a technical event if we didn't have technical issues. So thank you for joining us again. So right now we've lost our moderator. I think that she will be back in a moment. And also we're trying to figure out how to move to LinkedIn Live. So it just says that we're live. Great. All right, perfect. Okay, great. All right, so welcome. I'm Amanda Frederick. I'm the Program Communication Manager with Women Who Code, and you've just seen Sarah, but Sarah had to drop off, so I will take it from here. So we'd like to say hello to everyone. So if you could let us know in the chat, we just want to kind of get a feel for your sort of leadership style and also how comfortable that you're feeling with your leadership. Advocating for yourself or going for leadership possibilities, because that's why we're here today, to discuss and get insights on both of those things. So in the chat, if you could let us know what's one word that you would use to describe your favorite leadership style. And we're also curious, on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident you are in pursuing leadership opportunities and roles. That will help us kind of gauge as we move forward in the discussion. I'm looking here in the comments. So let's see if there's anyone here joining us today who wants to answer. It's possible that I'm not able to see. So we're hoping that you're feeling confident and able to advocate for yourself and your leadership possibilities. But we're hoping that in today's discussion, we'll illuminate that a little bit more. And I think that as we move on in the panel, we'll also get a feel from our panelists what their leadership style is, and also how they would describe that, and their opportunities that they would like to help you advocate for as well. Oh, I love that. Andrea let us know that she likes style. Leading with compassion is her leadership style as well. And let's go ahead and move on. We definitely want to welcome everyone today. So again, this is our capstone event to our Women's History Month celebration, and also our International Women's Day. So we're really excited to have you all here today, especially with the opportunity to speak to some of and connect with some of our leadership as well. So we've gathered 5 panelists who you'll meet soon. And before we get started, we also wanted to remind you that all Women Who Code events follow our code of conduct. All of Women Who Code spaces are safe and inclusive, so anyone who is here for the same mission that we are welcome. And if you have any questions or want to read the full code of conduct, you are able to do that. I'm going to grab that link for you. You can see it here, so you can read the full code of conduct at womenwhocode.com/code of conduct. Okay. So before we get started, we also wanted to thank Team Teal. So a lot of people don't know that we have this incredible team working behind the scenes every day to support the mission of inclusion and diversity and equity and empowering diverse women in technology. So we just want to give a shout out to the Team Teal members who are really the responsible for all the work that you see doing these kinds of events, all of our big, large events like Connect, all of our connecting with scholarship opportunities, our digital programs like the hackathons, all of our programming and our communications, our social media that you see that's doing an amazing job, our blog, the podcast, all of it is being run by the team that you see here. So for Women's History Month, obviously we want to acknowledge them, and today and every day, obviously, but they're really doing incredible work behind the scenes. Also, as part of Women's History Month, we're specifically working toward a goal to raise $30,000 to put toward programs that expressly work toward inspiring inclusion for women. The things that we're doing that I just mentioned, all their digital programs and all of the stages that we create so that women can amplify their diverse voices. We need funding to make all of that happen. And so if you're able to give any amount, we would appreciate that. As we work toward this goal for the Women's History Month, just to honor all the women from our past and just keep doing the good work that we're doing moving into the future as well. What you can expect. So today you'll meet our moderators and our panelists. You'll learn about their career journeys and leadership insights from them, pro tips for technologists like you on how to advance in your career. And you'll also have a chance to ask your leadership questions. So I have the pleasure of introducing you to Julie Elberfeld. She is the Women Who Code CEO. Julie brings a wealth of expertise to Women Who Code. We're really lucky to have her leading the helm, and she is going to do the moderation today. So Julie obviously is the CEO of Women Who Code, and she leads our global mission to empower diverse women to excel in their tech careers. She brings over 30 years of experience in tech leadership, including 10 years as a former Fortune 100 Chief Information Officer. Her vision and expertise have propelled her to spearhead large-scale digital transformations, fostering innovation and growth. And Julie's unique journey from coder to CEO gives her firsthand experience in the technology workforce, fueling her commitment to champion equitable career pathways and inclusive practices in tech. So Julie's going to introduce our panelists, and we're going to get our discussion going. Sorry again for the sort of hiccups getting started, but we're really all happy that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us, Julie, and I'll pass it over to you.
Amanda, thank you so much. I mean, these things happen, right? We're all in tech and we all know it's imperfect, and you recovered beautifully. So thank you so much for the introduction and getting us started here. I'm excited to be here today with 5 amazing panelists. First of all, Leslie Daigle is Chief Technology Officer and Internet Integrity Program Director for the Global Cyber Alliance, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to eradicate cyber risk around the globe. That is a big mission. She also helms NANOG Board of Directors, serving as their chair since last year. And Leslie has been actively involved in shaping the internet's practical evolution for more than 25 years. Welcome, Leslie. Our next panelist is Sumita Palanasamy, and she's a director of engineering at CarGurus, working with product and business leaders to build a better user experience for dealers and consumers. Sumita has over 15 years of experience and has proposed and implemented new processes such as chaos engineering practices at both Athena Health and at CarGurus. Sumita is a director for Women Who Code Boston. So welcome, Sumita. Andrea Chang is a senior technology leader and business strategist with over 25 years of experience in various industries, and she's currently vice president of delivery at Adage Technologies, where she leads teams to imagine and deliver digital solutions that solve complex business needs. Andrea is also director for Women Who Code Chicago. Welcome, Andrea. Sajal Amen is the Chief Technology Officer at Shutterstock, one of our partners. Sajal is a senior technology executive and product development expert with over 25 years of experience leading large teams through cultural, operational, and technology transformation for SaaS initiatives. Welcome, Sajal. And our last panelist is Jenny Lamb. She's a senior vice president of user experience design at Oracle, where she's responsible for reshaping the corporate brand through the Redwood User Experience Design Initiative running across the company. Jenny's rethinking how Oracle customers interact with technology and consume information in order to create a brand and a software experience that is not just desirable, but truly differentiated and a joy to use, which is awesome. So thank you all so much for joining today. I am really excited to have you here for Women's History Month as we close out the month. And I know there have been a lot of celebrations, and this one will be just as equally wonderful as the others that I've attended through the month. You are all such important role models with your levels of experience in leadership and technology. And we know there are not enough of you out there of women who are really role models for others who are trying to aspire to gain these levels of leadership in their career. And so that is really what this experience is all about. And just really excited to have you here today. And so we're going to jump in. We're going to pass some questions around and get everybody's thoughts out there today on leadership and technology and different topics. So everybody got a chance to hear a little bit about all of you in your career journeys from your bios, the quick little bios we did. But I also want to do another little quick round robin and ask each of you to share what motivated you to pursue a leadership role in your career pathway in tech. And so we can start with Leslie. We'll just go around.
Sure. And I think my answer is that I'm not sure I pursued it so much as it happened. My focus has always been on getting things done and, being responsible. And that meant taking on more and more responsibility. And here I am.
Yeah. Sumita, you want to jump in?
Sure. I think my motivation was twofold. One, I wanted to break as many glass ceilings as possible for my daughter. I wanted to show her that it was possible. And for someone who looks like me, I wanted her to have a role model that she can always look up to. And two, I also want to lift and raise as many people as I grow. So those are kind of my motivations.
That's awesome. Jenny, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there's, as a user experience designer, we've always kind of been adjacent to technology, but more and more, we're now helping define the experiences that technology delivers. And so for me, a little bit like Leslie and a little bit like Sumita, I didn't really pursue it, but I also saw that there weren't a lot of leadership positions for design in tech companies. Like the ceiling was pretty low. You didn't see C-level people, you didn't see SVPs, you rarely saw VPs. And so I think not expecting to just follow the status quo of where design leadership stopped and saying, well, we need more leadership, and going for those, like when you're interviewing, saying, well, why don't you have a CDO or an SVP of design? And so I think that was motivating, just to help sort of raise the bar there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Sejal, you want to hop in?
Yes, absolutely. And I'd say, look, similar to both Leslie and Sumita, starting with Leslie, look, it just happened. And while it was happening, I realized that I enjoyed the tech as much as I enjoyed the organizational part of the role, the operational part, and the people dynamics. And I realized I was good at it. And while it was happening, it was very, very motivating to be that role model. For all the other women around me. And like Sumita said, I have a daughter and she looks up to me now and has just started college and is following in my footsteps.
That's awesome. That's great. Andrea?
So much like the other women have said, it's leadership is definitely not something that I pursued as a career path, and quite frankly, neither was technology. I was never one of those kids that found their calling really early in life, but I was a kid who was super bossy and had ideas, kind of had this knack for getting people to execute on them. So I guess these days they're calling that leadership skills, but back then I was just more of a pain in the ass than anything. So I kind of fell into this career as French and International Studies undergrad. as you do, and stumbled into technology, realized that the problem solving aspect of it really resonated with me. And what I did was I kept, I was jumping on every opportunity that came my way. So that was really kind of the strategy with me, is just seizing the opportunities and continuing to build on experiences. And after a while, I kind of strangely began to realize that these experiences really mattered to people, and I could continue to help solve bigger and bigger problems based on the experiences. So, again, I didn't really pursue leadership, but it's something that really resonated. It helped me solve problems and hopefully helped grow other leaders as well.
It's interesting, all your answers, because I think oftentimes people think it's a very proactive, like, I have a plan, right? I have a plan on how I'm going to get to this next level. And I would say my answers would have reflected similarly to all of you, that it's just sort of happened to me. And I was also that bossy kid, Andrea, and so leadership always seemed to happen to me. People were always asking me to step up and be in charge, right? And so it just sort of happened in my career as well. But I do think that, when you reflect on it, right, there are like kind of those qualities, maybe bossy is one, or key skills that kind of influence that first transition and really has helped you to excel in the role. And so, Andrea, I was going to stay with you and ask you a little bit about, what do you think are those key qualities that have not only got you into the role, but have helped you sort of excel, your own personal qualities that you've applied to the role?
That's a good question. So I mentioned, in the chat earlier in the program that, my leadership quality is to lead with compassion. And I think that is one of the personal qualities as well. And one of my primary drivers is to lead with compassion, to act with compassion. I think it's also very important to listen with empathy. From a decision-making perspective, I decide with purpose, and I act confidently on those decisions. And I think those are, kind of like the three primary qualities from my personal perspective that have helped make me successful. I also think, I think that those are very innately, I see those in many successful leaders who are women as well. And I think that those are skills that we can also use to our advantage.
Absolutely. Makes a ton of sense. And Smita, I was curious what you think about how important your success in tech leadership, right, has been tied to staying up to date with the industry trends and emerging tech. I think that's often this balance that we're trying to lead, but we are tech leaders, not just any leader. And how important has that been in your success, do you think, to stay current on industry trends and emerging tech?
I think very. I also think that we are in unprecedented times today, especially with tech, right? Like the landscape that is a year ago even was not the same as what it is right now. Like this is like how the mobile phones were founded. I feel like we are at that inflection point in tech. You have to get on that rocket ship. So now, especially more than ever, I think it is very important. Although more than 98% of what I do every day involves people, but to be able to make the connection, to be actually able to step into an engineer's shoes and be able to guide the team for success, I need to know what it is about. Unless I am immersed in the tech, I won't be able to provide that 98% leverage that my team needs. So I think it is very crucial and important.
I was going to ask one more person, maybe if they wanted to chime in on their unique skills. Maybe, I don't know, Jenny, do you have any additional things that you would add, or you're like,
I mean, I think that I was just chiming off, or sort of building off of what Smita said. The ability when you're leading a team to have the street cred of zooming into the details of the code or the design or whatever, like there's a sort of player coach model where you're hands-on in it, and you get that credibility from the team can trust you. But then being able to zoom out and see the bigger picture of how this fits in with the business landscape, the industry, the world, whatever. I think that zooming in and out, that's something that takes a lot of time to figure out how to do and to have those perspectives, but it also connects you with the team and gives you the trust and connection you need with your team to get stuff done. So that's something that I continue to work on.
Yeah, I think it's really one of those challenges, right, in tech leadership is how do you balance your time between leadership and also trusting people on your team, right? I think you need to know enough, but you also have to find a way to have those experts and know the experts you need to surround yourselves with and trust some of them to help you with some of that tech, because we can't all know it all, right? It is
Totally. Yeah, well
too
said.
complex, right? So Sejal, I know you and I have talked about this a little bit in some of our conversations, but when you really think about your career, what challenges have you faced as a woman in tech, specifically as an identity as a woman in tech, and how have you overcome those, if you have been able to?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking that. I think from my point of view, I'd say it was two things. First one was being heard in a room of men where I was typically the only woman in the room. And so what did I do to overcome that? Over the years, it's required me to really focus on my communication skills for impact, and finding the right places to speak up in meaningful ways. Candidly, in other ways, I would look to gain support on the topic or the message or the content before the meeting with others, depending on the importance of the meeting and what impact I was trying to make. Um, Again, knowing the conditions and kind of being proactive about being successful in those conditions. I think the second thing is fighting the perception that I wasn't the most technical one in the room. And over the years, realizing that I didn't always need to be, even though obviously you grew up with the technical skills and you were in those technical roles. And understanding that as you grow up in the role, it was no longer my job to be the most technical person in the room. And that realization changed the way I showed up, and it continues to shape it. I think early in an engineer's training, you learn that the hard skills and the hard engineering skills, such as the technical ability and the problem solving, ones are the ones that are required. But the softer skills tend to be more on the back seat, such as communication, relationship, and teamwork. And I think all too often those skills are viewed as gendered, with the former being more masculine and the latter being more feminine. And so, look, I've learned to own all of that. And I talk a lot about how leadership is about all of that. It's a combined set of things. And I own that responsibility. I talk about it all the time.
I love that. And I love that you have come to sort of say, I don't have to be the most technical person in the room. A little bit about what I was saying is, you're there to lead, and trusting the people who are deeper into it every day, right? Your architects, your engineers, those people who are the designers that are down in the weeds every day are the ones that, they're the ones that you're looking for those technical skills. I love that. Because it can be daunting to think that you have to do it all. Leslie, I know, being in the cyber field, I'm just curious what action, I know you've seen a lot of change in the cyber field, I imagine, in terms of even the representation of women. I know I saw in my work more and more women sort of entering the cyber field, but I'm curious what you would think about what actions the tech industry needs to take to become more inclusive and supportive of women and other underrepresented groups. We probably all have thoughts about this one.
Yeah. Well, and I just wanted to add a bit to what Sejal just said,
Yes.
in the sense of that, indeed, one doesn't have to be the smartest person in the room, but that's the added, you're always on a knife edge, right? Where you're still demonstrating you're adequately competent, but you aren't trying to be the person who's doing all the things. And that's a delicate balance to achieve. In terms of what can the tech industry do, I know that a lot of organizations like NANOG are very focused on, how do we bring more people into the industry meetings, which is where a lot of the careers get shaped. And the focus there really is on making sure that there aren't implicit biases, and that there is no, making sure that, bad behavior is not acceptable in the context of meetings like that. Presumably, the same kind of thing has to be applied in workplaces as well. Somebody in the chat commented that they haven't had the benefit of experiencing workplaces like that. And apart from those sort of more direct things, there are also some side things that are important to pursue as well, which is to say things like making sure that the expressions that are used or that the activities that are engaged in aren't necessarily sort of encapsulated in one world. So, maybe not everybody's into football, and that doesn't have to be a gendered experience either. But the kinds of activities and side activities that are typically more interesting to men may not be the same ones as for women, and it really makes it hard to mix. So, how do you find things that are both engaging to everybody, and also find ways of talking about things and expression so that even when you're not talking about the work at hand, you're not talking past each other?
Absolutely. That sense of inclusion, right? It can be really hard if every conversation is one around sports. Some women are really into sports, but not everyone is, for sure. And even not even all men are into sports. So sometimes when the conversation is nothing but sports, it's just not including everyone. Smita, I was interested in your thoughts, especially because you're a director for Women Who Code and you're hearing a lot of perspectives from the women in our community. What is your thought around this topic of what the industry can do to really be more supportive?
I think being more aware of your biases, like in a lot of performance reviews, for example, the feedback given to men is different than the feedback given to women. So putting tools in place so that those performance biases are checked. Like there are tools like Text.io, which help you put those checks right there in your systems. And for recruiting, performance reviews, I think those are like important places to have those checks in place. And also to make it okay within your team so that one person doesn't talk all the time. And you have to be aware of how much time everyone takes to express themselves. Sometimes the quietest person in the meeting may have a lot of ideas and they may not have had time to inject in. So making the whole team aware of those differences is important too, that we have to make space for everyone and everyone has to have a voice. So having that open discussion is useful.
Does anybody, that's awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else want to chime in? This is such an important question when we think about, industry change, because we've all been in this conversation for so many years. I personally have been leading this work for over a decade now, and feel at times I'm having the same conversation I had a decade ago. And so thinking really truly about, what needs to sort of change in the industry to make it more for where women are more represented and included. And any other ideas that anybody wanted to toss out that hasn't had a chance yet?
So Julie, I'll jump in, and I think you and I may have chatted about this, but I think females and those from other underrepresented groups need to embrace what I like to call their identity complexity, and the fact that they may hold both technical and professional values, rather than trying to force anyone into any kind of predetermined box. And I think, workplaces need to support women and those in other groups to express their uniqueness and their brand in the engineering workforce, and then support their growth as people who have a broad set of skills, interests, and aptitudes. And I think in creating those conditions, we can start talking about what are the benefits of being a woman or another type of person in an engineering role. What are the benefits to the company of someone who has technical, organizational, and communication proficiencies? How do you articulate those benefits? I think having that conversation actively in the workplace and supporting that conversation is incredibly important.
And just to follow on to that, Sujal, do you have techniques that you have leveraged in your own workplaces around how you do that, how you you disrupt what you see as not being inclusive behavior, or how you accelerate, the inclusive behaviors that allow all voices to be heard and valued. And do you, how do you actually do that? How are
Yeah.
there practical tips for people
Sure.
to how to do that?
Sure. And so, look, first and foremost, I think it's super important that I try to understand the experience that people are having in the environment, so that you can tailor actions and experiences that make an impact, right? So the first thing is take the time to understand what's really going on. And so in the past, I've done things like set up lean in and mentoring circles so that people in the environment have the appropriate support. They're sharing experiences and have others to lean on. I think it's important that this conversation doesn't turn into an us versus them, but it's all about support. Um, Look, the topic of allyship, making that an active conversation in the workplace so that people understand when they see microaggressions and they're able to respond in an appropriate way. I think all too often women have experiences that are not so overt, but they're really small nuances that affect their overall experience, right? And so the point here is that others who see it can help, and maybe the ones who are doing it don't know they are, assume positive intent. And I think that requires a culture positive conversation. Um, on the topic of the technical and the professional skills, I think it's about emphasizing the importance of all the attributes required to be successful as an engineer or in a leadership role, and making this a continuous narrative in the environment. We're having active conversation here about what the word technical means, repeating that. Um, Repeating that in many, many different ways, making it part of the role definition, honestly, making it part of the career framework, making it part of the evaluation framework, so that it is well understood and that it's applied as consistently as we can.
Awesome thoughts. Who else wants to chime in on this one? It's just so important. Like, what are the practical tips on how you help your organization become a more inclusive place and more welcoming for women? Anybody else want to add?
I guess I'll add that I loved Sejal's her ideas, but the systematic approach, but also thinking about the arc of the career and supporting not just the folks who are in the middle, but maybe even really early on, K through 12, finding sponsorship there. I think large organizations have budget for this, and we should put our money where our mouth is and sponsor the folks who are entering that, making aware that this is a viable career option. And then also the tail end. I feel like we ignore those ends of the arc. The more seasoned folks doesn't mean that they don't need any more mentorship or support. They still need that more so than anyone else. And so I think thinking about that whole career cycle, and then also funding it through organizations like Women Who Code, and other organizations that will accelerate that those initiatives.
I'll chime in on that one. Plus one. Anybody else want to add to this question? It's just such a powerful one. I'll add just from my own experience, because I did a lot of this work, like I said, over the last decade. And I'm really passionate about is looking at assignment. And I think Sejal was getting at this somewhat, but I often think that women are relegated to assignments that feel very gendered. And then those are also not the assignments that are valued. And so again, it gets into that like blend of technical and other types of skills. And if you look early career and you say, well, we've sort of relegated all of our women to be the Scrum Masters and do the PowerPoint presentations and speak for the team and go out and talk to the business and gather, some of their thoughts or requirements. And then we have most of the men doing the actual coding. And then when it comes to promotion cycle, if what we're really valuing are the technical skills, and you're not giving women the same at bats, then it really does create this differentiation in terms of their ability to move up in the organization. And candidly, most people, when they don't move up in an organization, start to say, like, I don't see myself here. And we continue to have this cycle of dropout. So I'm very keen on asking people to take a serious look at what assignments they're offering people and what do they value. And we know that we should value all of it equally, but I think in a lot of organizations, especially in early career, there's a lot of emphasis on the value of technical skills, but not giving everyone that same equal opportunity. So one of the tips I would add. So let's take a little bit of a shift here. And Andrea, I'll ask you this question to start about what future trends in technology do you think are going to provide more opportunities for women to take on leadership roles, and how can we prepare for those opportunities?
Sure. So I guess it won't come as a surprise to most, but AI and automation.
Really?
Yes. So things like that are already happening today. So more blind recruitment that will eliminate some of those gender and unconscious biases in the screening process will become more prevalent. I think that in more male-dominated areas and male-dominated technology, but such as cybersecurity, for example, where there's generally a higher barrier to entry, automating some tasks like intrusion detection, incident response will kind of level that playing field a bit and create more opportunities for women. And perhaps Leslie can speak more to this. And in speaking of AI and how it can help, I know there's general fear about AI replacing jobs too, but there are careers or areas that AI simply cannot replace, and those are the things that are highly dependent on relationship building, of building those complex and sophisticated interpersonal relationships with people. Understanding complex human emotions, and making large decisions that require multiple inputs. That's not going to be replaced by AI. And I think that there's certainly a lot of opportunity and advantage in that area.
That's awesome. Love that thought and answer to the question. Leslie, Andrea mentioned cyber. With your background, I'd love your thoughts on this question about where women can lean in with the new technology trends.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to bring up AI because I think Andrea is right that if we can get AIs to be unbiased reviewers of CVs, that will be great. Part of the problem is that right now they tend to be rather biased in their evaluation of things, and that's a training problem.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of cyber, well, I'm going to actually take a slight pivot to the left and say, well, a lot of solutions to cyber problems are about people using technology. So I think there are a lot of opportunities when we stop saying we'll build a better mousetrap to solve the cybersecurity challenges and focus on how do we get people to understand their context, not be afraid of the technology, and be smart about using it. Mm-hmm. I think that there are opportunities for everyone in that space going forward. But I do also note that there's sort of a playing out in the chat. There's an evolution of somebody who's experiencing everything that we're trying to fight against, which is to say, getting into technology, not getting into contexts that are supportive, and thinking that their only option is to leave. And I just wanted to say that it's always hard. There isn't a perfect job in this day and age. There isn't a forever company, but in order to sort of engage with the company that you're in, if you are frustrated, if you're not happy, it does help a lot to sort of put it at an arm's length and say, I am me. I will never forget that I am me, and that's what's important. And this is what I'm spending my time on. So treat it almost like a consulting gig, even though it's a paid job, because with that sort of intellectual distance, a lot of the nonsense can just roll off, and you can stay focused on building the best you that you are, and who you are is what matters at the end of the day.
That's awesome. Does anybody else want to chime in on this question? It's a good one. Okay. That's good. Well, we can move to another entirely sort of different topic. And Jenny, I was going to toss this one to you, but it can be really stressful to, to deal with all of the things that we are talking about here. And I just wondered if you could share some strategies that have helped you sort of manage the stress and prevent burnout as you were pursuing your career and pursuing leadership and new opportunities.
I liked a lot of what Leslie had to say. So that I'm keeping that in mind too. I'm a mom. I have twin daughters, 10 years old. And I love my work. It's my livelihood and it is part of my identity. And it's not part of everyone's identity. And everyone, like there might be different kind of makeups of that. But for me, that's what it is. And so I think early on in my career, I felt like that was the most important thing. And as I get older and as I grow a family and raise daughters, I realized that that my priorities have shifted. And I also am learning more about myself. I got divorced last year, and this year I'm learning a lot about what I can do for myself. And so I love what Leslie said about, learning about yourself and being the best you. One thing I think that the pandemic taught us is that we don't have to separate work and life. Like they can be integrated. And so I really don't like the term for me. I don't like the work-life balance because I feel compartmentalized. And I think the pandemic taught us that we can integrate those things. We could just set boundaries around, well, I'm going to be out for this. I'm going to leave every day at 3:00 to go pick up my kids, but I'll be back online, at this time. And I'm still getting my work done. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still growing. And then I'm growing my teams. So I think, that mindset shift of maybe integrating them and then figuring out ways to set boundaries within that is a really helpful way to just live, because life goes on. There's not, there are doctor's appointments and other emergencies that happen that don't always happen outside of 9 to 5. And so I think just that mindset shift has helped me a lot with just that, integration.
That's awesome. Does anybody else want to add to this? I see a lot of head nodding. I think we all have these ideas, but are there any other thoughts that somebody wanted to add to this?
I can add.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead first.
So for me, the first thing that I had to do was just like let go of this notion that I could do everything, because I can't. And the other thing is to accept that for some things, just okay is perfect. So, similar to the other panelists, I have kids. I have 3 kids. They're 17, 8, and 5, and we have a busy life. I have a spouse who works outside of the home. We have full-time careers. I have organizations like Women Who Code that I love to volunteer my time with. But if I tried to do everything at 100%, I would die. I would like literally die. And it took me a few breakdowns to realize that, the best thing that I could do for myself and the people around me and my career was, to learn to say no or not right now to the things that weren't a priority or didn't immediately serve me. So that was something that took me a while because, with my personality, and I'm sure with many of you too, I was trying to do everything at 100%. And I could not maintain that. So it's okay. It's okay to just be okay.
Absolutely. Sajal, you were going to chime in as well?
I was, and my answer was going to be a flavor of Andrea's. But to plus what you were just saying, Andrea, you quickly learn to realize that no one is judging you other than you, right? And so plus to the, you don't have to do everything to 100%. And I found early in my career, I wanted to be everywhere. I wanted to show up 110% of the time because I felt like I needed to do that to be successful. Over time, you quickly realize that you don't need to, and that you just need to ruthlessly prioritize. And in doing that, over time, I learned how to ask for help. I learned how to recognize when I was overwhelmed, um, and stop. And as a result of that, you learn how to prioritize and you learn how to say no. Andrea, I couldn't agree with you more. I struggle with saying no, and sometimes today I still do, and I have to remind myself no is an acceptable answer. And so you practice that.
Absolutely. Yeah, these are wonderful tips. And I think it is like, oftentimes I think women are taught, this level of perfection that they need to bring to everything. And then you're in a male dominated field and you feel like you have to show up even more because, someone's going to question you anyway, because maybe they think that you don't belong there. So you feel like you have to prove it. And, there really is this, there are oftentimes where the B is good enough. Sometimes the C is good enough. Sometimes the D is good enough, And so really saying like, these are the couple things that I really need to lean into right now in this moment. And I can let other things go. And I can pick up those other things at another time, and that we don't have to accomplish everything at a very short period of time. I think sometimes we forget that our life is not like compressed into like 20 years, right? We can really do things at different stages of our careers as well. And I always say to people like, I was in my 40s before I had a really, kind of very senior leadership role in technology. And, so it doesn't have to all happen like, really compressed early in your life. So I think those are really great tips that everyone has shared. I want to ask one final question of everyone on the panel, just a quick answer. And then we'll see if we have time for some audience questions. But I wanted to ask you what pro tip for women in tech, what's your pro tip for women in tech who aspire toward executive leadership? So let's just go around and answer that. Give our audience here a pro tip for them to take away from today. Who wants to start?
I can start. And I would say just don't listen to the haters. Be yourself.
Love that.
I can go next. Really love this quote, and I think I apply it a lot. It is, if you don't get a seat at the table, make sure you bring a folding chair.
Love that.
That's awesome. I will add, learn how to communicate and practice it. Public speaking, because I think that when you don't get your ideas across well, you might have an amazing idea, something to say, but if you don't know how to communicate it, it's very hard to be heard. So it could be an improv class, whatever, or just at a meeting, doing presentation. I think communications.
Mine is, don't be daunted by what you perceive as other people's success. And I feel like that is so rampant in this age of social media. Nobody's knocking it out of the park on the first try. You just never really hear about the flops or the failures, or the things that didn't work out, because it's not as compelling as these great success stories. But don't let other people's success define how you perceive yourself.
Love that.
That's awesome.
And for me, I'd say, look, develop and manage your brand and do it in your authentic voice. If you behave in a way that is unnatural to you, people see through it and it ends up burning you out.
Those are awesome. Love all of those tips. And, I would add my own that is kind of hearkening back to the conversation we were having right before this question, but and I'm going to borrow a term from another amazing woman in the leadership space around this whole mission to get more people into tech, more women into tech. But it's really this idea of being brave, not perfect. I think we oftentimes feel like we have to be perfect, and we don't. It's kind of like an encapsulation of a lot of what you have all said is you need to find your voice. You need to be willing to speak up. You need to kind of stand your ground and be brave. but you don't have to be perfect. And it's something little boys are taught from the very beginning. And we applaud them for their bravery and don't really expect, them to be perfect. And we give girls oftentimes a very different message depending on the culture. But just something to think about. So we definitely have more time. Do we have any questions that we want to tee up from our audience? Okay, here's one that came in. What actions do you suggest we have to make to get the knowledge and skills required to be a person who can get a kickstart to being in the leadership team? So just specific actions to take.
Well, I could chime in. Well, one could be building relationships cross-discipline. I know for me, as a designer, having mentorships not just in my field, but in the adjacent ones, whether it be technical or business or whatever, those relationships will get you very far in terms of like knowledge and skills, but then also networking, and finding other opportunities. So I think building relationships and not just your discipline, but right outside would be great.
Love that. Anybody else want to chime in?
I would suggest something that you said earlier, Jenny, that developing that capacity to zoom in and zoom out, because delivering on a project is important, but being able to say this is how my project fits into the larger scheme is what will definitely get attention.
Yes, perspective.
Okay, here's another one. Do you have any advice for new grads preparing to enter the industry?
Build your network. Seriously, I think that's so important, is to build your network, to build those connections. Your network is the team that you're going to rely on for your career, for jobs, for opportunities. And you can build that network through things like this event, through various networking events, even in adjacent technologies or adjacent areas. You never know where opportunities might come. So just go out with that open mindset that you're going to look out for the opportunities. And your network doesn't always have to serve you. It's a two-way street too. So look for the opportunities to help others as well. So that's really the most important thing that I can say, especially as a new grad or a new professional, is just to continue to build that network and to build those elevator people who are going to support you through your career.
Anybody else want to answer? I'm going to actually throw an answer out on that one, because having been 35 years in the career and on the other side of things, if you are a senior, I'm assuming maybe a senior in college, getting ready to finish and getting ready to enter the career, I would say spend your summer enjoying yourself. If you don't have to start your job right away, and you can, and you have that opportunity, because candidly, I think the best people coming into the tech space are ones who are just really well-rounded, who are looking around themselves and being inspired by the world and thinking about that inspiration, how it applies to innovating in their tech world. So if you have that opportunity and that's where you are in your life, take advantage of that. And even if you are starting your work right away, just continue to be inspired by the world and get away from that computer screen on occasion and take a look around. Okay, we have another question here. Have any of you gotten frustrated in your careers? What did you do to work through that frustration? I want to find my forever company. Who wants to grab that? Guessing everyone's answer is yes, but who wants to take that one?
Sure, I'll jump in there. Of course, we get frustrated all day, every day. It happens I'm not kidding, on a daily basis. But look, what do you do to work through that? Some some self-reflection, some asking for help, some, right? It's about taking control of the situation you find yourself in and guiding yourself. And your comment on finding the forever company, I'll be honest, I don't know that exists. Very, very early in my career, I thought it existed too. And then I realized and I learned the power of diversification, having different experiences in different places after a period of time that you're comfortable with is a really, really good thing so that you're able to tell your story. And it's not one out of you're jumping from place to place because you're frustrated. You're jumping from place to place deliberately because you're building up your portfolio of experiences and work, right? So that because you're on a journey and you don't actually know what the destination is going to be. So that's how I think about it.
Well said.
Absolutely. And I think if it's a really large company, you might have opportunity for different types of roles, but that's always one of my tips as well. You would constantly need to be asking for the next assignment that's going to keep you growing. And that's how you get breadth and diversity. Yeah. Were you given leadership training or coaching in your company? Or did you get it externally? Or did you get it externally?
I can jump in on that one. Not as a first step. I was a manager for over 15 years before I had any training offered by the company. I think most of what I learned through volunteer positions in standards organizations as well as on the job. I will say that when I did get some leadership training, the particular course that I was involved in did really caused me to see some important things. But it can be a struggle to try to find the right fit for training. And I think maybe that's especially true in the technology world, where many of the consultants that I've found anyway are kind of scared about that technology stuff, and it's hard to find the right fit.
Anybody else want to jump in on that? So I think we probably are at the end of our time to take audience questions. I want to thank all of you so much for joining us today. Again, celebrating Women's History Month, such an important time for us to reflect on all of the women who've come before us, and certainly in the tech space, remembering that all of those early coders were women, and we just didn't know about them in history. And fortunately, we're learning more and more about the history of tech and the important role women have always played in technology. And so thank you for celebrating this time with us here today. And, we often hear that in tech, there aren't enough women leaders who are role models for aspiring career growth. So here on the panel today, we've had 5 wonderful examples for our audience. And so thank you again so much for sharing your experiences with the folks who've joined us here today. And so as we close out, I just have 3 asks of everyone who's joined today. It was mentioned at the top of the call, and certainly it was mentioned throughout the call about the importance of making an actual investment in this work. And so in honor of Women's History Month, if you could please help us raise our $30,000 that we're trying to raise for Women's History Month. You can see the link there on the screen. Keep the discussion going in our upcoming Women Who Code global virtual event, the Women Who Code Connect 2024, called Thrive in Tech. And help us by finding these great women leaders and technologists by nominating up to 3 technologists for Women Who Code's Applaud Her Awards, 100 technologists to watch. Thank you again to our panelists, and thanks everybody who joined today. Happy Women's History Month. Again, thanks for joining. Bye-bye.